I disagree with Ryan. It's his show. I just do the talking.
That's unmuted, and then you should be good.
I'm just the host.
Listen, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. Got it.
much less popular.
No, but Night Train said it's good now. Night Train said it's good now.
Okay, you're on. Go ahead, guys. Start over.
I am so sorry. I didn't realize.
Oh, all over the. Okay. Well,
you got it now.
Welcome to
Sorry.
Got Your Six. I'm Kevlar Kid, and this is all brought to you by BrainJerk Entertainment. Sorry about the difficulties. We were just talking about changes in perspective over time. And you were just telling us, man, the speed bumps always get you.
That, I guess time heals.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I had that was needed to be healed, probably healed by now because, like I said, being a medic, I was busy. We were busy. I mean, it was working 12 hours a day, every day. Working in hospitals. It's not
Mine?
There's a lot of trauma, a lot of medical decisions. Even though I was an enlisted.
Can you hold your mic?
Sure. Which one? Hold it?
Yeah, put it more towards your face. All right. Yeah, everybody's wanting to hear what you got to say.
Okay. So yeah, it's not only in being in the military, you just don't do. I had to do a lot of administrative work too, because I had guys and WAFs at the time under me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to show them what had to be done. And in order to make money in the service, you have to have rank.
Right.
You want to make some money, to put it like that, you have to advance in rank.
Yes.
And that's what I had to do. Have a curriculum so these guys would advance. They have to advance in the career that they're in and go further up. Know more. The more you know, then you get those stripes. That type of thing. And I used to motivate my guys by, you got to remember, a lot of these guys were new to, they were kids.
Yeah.
Like I was, maybe a little older than them, but I had to teach them. You leave the house, you leave home, and now you're on your own. So yeah, it's kind of hard to get used to it, but you get used to it right away.
Yes. Yeah, they forced that change. When I had turned 18 3 days before I got to Fort Benning for basic, and I was like a young 18-year-old, if that makes sense. Like mentally, I was still very much a kid, a high school kid. I wasn't, and I didn't realize that until I got to basic when I was around 18-year-olds that were men, and I was not that yet. But I was by the end of my first deployment. It forces that change, and maybe that's why it was so hard to let go. I did a lot of my growing up, in the Army.
Yeah. If I could do it again, I would do it.
Yeah.
I'm 77 years old. I don't think they let me.
No.
But
no,
at any
probably
rate, I can't say I had fun in the service. Yeah, there was fun, but a lot of work.
Yeah, the majority of my memories are not fun memories. While they're all there, but it was all under the context of like danger and unsafe and uncomfortable.
and for me, during that era, you didn't know whether or not you were going to make it home.
Yeah, you guys were pretty wildly uninformed.
Walking on
right?
eggshells, it seemed like. But anyways, you had to go on. You had to keep going. Like I said, I had to deal with the guys and the WAFs. I had to deal with their problems, making sure that they did what they were supposed to do. Yeah, there were some that screwed up. I'm the one that had to answer for it. But all in all, it was.
So you were
I was the lowest ranking NCOIC in that hospital. If you know what that
Okay, NCOIC, NCO in charge. Okay, so how many young men did you
I
lead?
had 5 WAFs and 10 airmen.
What's a WAF?
A Women's Air Force.
Oh, okay, all right, cool. That's good. I didn't know
And
that.
so right away when they come to the hospital, and they were assigned to me, right away they wanted to sit. It was the delivery room, nursery, isolated nursery, then the GYN section. It was that part of the hospital that I was in charge of. I was always in charge of the morgue. Never used it really. I did, but for something other.
Sure.
And so I kept all the beer. So anyways, yeah. And I had to assign, make sure they knew what they were doing. I had to show them everything. Of course, they already come prepared. I spent like almost 5-6 months in Wichita Falls, Texas, at a medical school.
Right.
So they cram everything they can into you. And that's what, there was other avenues. It could be a X-ray technician, or you work in the lab. You can work in the kitchen if you wanted to. I mean, that general area. But being that I had some experience before I joined the service, I decided to just go into medical.
And you chose your MOS. You chose to be a medic. So, did you choose medic because you had some experience, or okay?
I figured it'd be a lot easier to go.
Well, maybe
get
if
into
you
something else.
if you had a basic understanding already.
Right.
Okay. Cool. That's wild. Like I told you earlier when we first met, is that because I was in infantry, I have great love for medics, especially mine, Doc Abrahams. Great dude. Man, wow.
Well, here's an interesting fact. I guess I delivered my first son.
You delivered your first son
at that hospital. Because when I got married, my wife moved, brought her up to base. We lived on base. And when it was time, she called me. She says, "Hey, my water broke. All right, I'll send somebody out there." I dispatched an ambulance to go get her. Brought her in. And she was in labor. And I remember the doctor. I'll never forget his name. Dr. Lord. That was his name. And he used that last name because I remember when he would deliver babies, they'd always say, the women would always say, "Oh, thank you, Lord." They weren't talking to him, but he would say, "Not a problem." I kind of look at him and say, "Gosh, Doc, that's pretty bad."
Yeah, maybe a little arrogant.
So what happens, my wife's there. He says, "Lucio, you started this. You go ahead and finish it."
Well, that would be cool.
Of course, I had everybody there watching.
Right.
But I've seen it so many times that I could do it. That's his job and the nurse's job. As a medic, we were just assisting, and helping the nurses and doing all those routine things that nurses do anyways. Medic, that's really what we were, nurses. Yeah, but it was a good. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when I got out of the service, I tried to use that.
You tried to?
I tried to use that experience. There was an accelerated course here at Monroe Community College for RNs, 2-year course.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, man, that's perfect. They didn't take it.
They wouldn't take you?
They wouldn't take it. Because I was a guy. I'd be a distraction.
Oh.
Besides, I knew too much.
Okay.
I might be a distraction. So she turned me down. And I thought, wow, man. Because this was back in the 70s.
Overqualified?
Probably.
Wow. Okay.
Again, it wasn't a man's field.
Right.
I'm sure it is now. At that time. So I became a pipe fitter.
A pipe fitter. Okay. That's good money.
What happened?
What is now?
A buddy of mine called me up. He was in the Army. He worked at a Mars station.
A Mars station? Why does that sound familiar, but I'm not?
Well, it was a communication type of thing. He would call me over the base. Hey, Lucy, we got to call you from the Ernie. Anyways, later on after we we got out of the service. He called me up. He says, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" Well, I was going to Siena Heights. I was going to college. And he says, "Hey, they're looking for pipe fitters." So, what's a pipe fitter? Well, it's like a plumber, a pipe fitter. They weld pipes. And it's some kind of skill, right? He said, "Yeah. Well, I'll give it a shot." And that's where it was. I became a pipe fitter and retired as a pipe fitter.
Okay.
I worked at Fermi when it was a hole in the ground.
Oh, really? I worked there too right after I got out as security.
And I worked at, coal burner, Edison coal burner.
Oh, okay.
I remember when the stacks went up, and I saw them go down. Now they got new stacks. I worked on the new stacks too. And I worked at Fermi for a long time. That's why I glow at night. But yeah, it was. But the military, I gotta, if it wasn't for the military, it taught me how to be organized,
Mm-hmm.
how to, I guess it teaches you to be more clear thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It taught you that.
Yes. A decision making, like instead of getting like stuck in the middle ground where you can't make up your mind, you just kind of just go with whatever comes to mind. Yeah, I have that problem too. It becomes impulsive later on. At least it did for me. So what kind of, you mentioned earlier that while you were stationed in northern Michigan.
Yeah, what happened was that when I was at Wichita Falls waiting for our orders, I was the only one in the whole flight that didn't get any orders. I thought, wow, that's unusual. And at that time, I knew where all the medics were going, more or less. And so why my orders didn't come through, I don't know. So I ended up being what they call a casual.
Mm-hmm.
And I just roamed around base, enjoying whatever things were there. But finally, my first sergeant said, "Yeah, we're going to send you to remedial training, not so much remedial, but like go out in the wilderness, survival."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what I was getting into. I said, "Yeah, that sounds pretty good. What's it for?" She said, "Well, it's just for a week, for some of the guys that need to have that kind of training again." I said, "I'll go." Little did I know that when they came to pick me up the next day at the first sergeant's office, I had my bag and I had everything all set up. They told me to wear fatigues. And this captain comes out and he's wearing a beret, maroon beret.
Oh, okay. Airborne guy.
And I thought, what am I getting into? I think it's Special Forces.
Yeah. Well, Air Force guys, when they were, was he an Air Force guy?
Yeah.
I got no idea.
So anyways, he said, "Well, you follow me," and I followed him. We ran to the bus, got out. We were out in the sticks, out in the boonies, out in Texas, which I don't know if you know what it looks like out there. Like a desert. And that's what we did. Learn how to catch rattlesnakes, how to cook them.
Oh, so you did like a SEER school, a survivor school, pretty much.
More or less.
Oh, he probably was a Special Forces guy.
Yeah, well, it turns out I was the only non-com there. I thought maybe I was going to be the guinea pig.
They're gonna just bring you there to mess with you.
But we had fun. It was rough, and I learned a lot when I got back. First sergeant looked at me and says, "Well, did you enjoy it?" I said, "Yeah, Sergeant, but man."
Thanks a lot, man.
So finally, the QC runner comes up. QC, what do you call those guys? Anyway, he come up. He says, "Sergeant wants to see you right away." Oh, maybe my orders came. So I went to the first sergeant's office. I said, "Hey, Sarge, what's up?" He says, "Your orders are in." "Well, where am I going?" And I thought, well, here I go. He says, "You ever heard of a place called Michigan?" Looked at him and says, "What? Michigan? That's where I'm from, Sarge." He looked at me and goes, "What?" He's looking over his paperwork. "Well, you son of a gun. How'd you pull that off?" So I spent 3.5 years up in the UP.
I had a guy in basic. He was from Hawaii and then got orders for Hawaii.
Yeah.
He was mad. He was like, "Are you kidding me? I joined to like get away from home, and they're sending me right back to down the road."
See, they gave us what they call a dream sheet. They
Yes.
wanted you to put down where you would really want to go.
Yeah, like your top 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still do that.
So I put down, I think I put down Hawaii or something like that, West Coast, and then I put down Florida. I was trying to be careful, and I figured, I'll put down Michigan as my third choice. Well, I got my third choice.
I think they always give you your third choice because Carson was my third choice, and there was other people I've talked to. They're like, "Well, they'll give you number 3."
Well, they did.
Got lucky, I guess.
But yeah, that's where I was. He told me, yeah, you better get your parka gear going. Parka gear? Where am I going? Tully Green? Where am I going? Alaska? No, you're here of a place called Michigan. And he pointed it out to me. On the map, he says, you'll be right here. And I looked at it and said, Sarge, I live right here.
Nice.
That was great.
When I first got to my, I caught up in Iraq with my first deployment. I caught up with the unit I was going to be with, and they broke us up by what state we were from. So everybody from Michigan, Ohio went to 2nd Platoon. So when I got to 2nd Platoon and met my leadership, they were like, "Well, I'm from Ohio. You suck. Do push-ups."
Wow.
That was like my entrance to the unit I was with.
Yeah, well, for us, it was all these guys, like I said, all local guys, like from Detroit, Inkster.
Okay.
Met a lot of guys that, as a matter of fact, even when I got stationed up there, I met guys that, a lot of them were from Michigan. So when I would come home, they hitch a ride with me, or I hitch a ride with them,
Okay.
and hitch a ride back. It was like over 350 some miles from Monroe to there, I think. It's about.
So when you were in, did you ever find your faith, whatever that may be, challenged? Like within yourself, not necessarily, because I mean, obviously, if you go to a military setting and start talking about faith, about religion, you're gonna get some feedback. Maybe not great.
Well, I'll tell you what, all the guys I used to hang out with,
Mhm.
they were either, they were being Catholic. I used to run around with a lot of Jewish guys from New York,
Right.
you know, and I got to know how they lived or how they believed. And of course, you meet everybody. Everybody has a different. And I remember our church. We had a building on base, and that church was a Catholic church, a Protestant church, synagogue. It was funny that church was everything,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and everybody would go there.
Yeah, that's the way it was for us too. Is now our chaplain for our battalion, he was Protestant, but his church had all the imagery from all of them. It was kind of
Our
interesting.
chaplain, he was Catholic, Catholic. And nice guy, and you learn a lot. Over there, you go to church anytime you want it.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to see the chaplain, you come by.
Mhm.
Not a problem. But no, I don't think I still kept my faith.
Oh man.
Actually, I clung to it a little bit more.
Crazy is when I deployed, and this is like one of my big regrets, is that I almost left God here and went there and acted like a wild man, and then came home and then tried to pick up the pieces on my own. So my faith was definitely challenged and definitely brought low, I guess.
Well, I always believe that God sets a course for us,
Mhm.
and whatever it may be, you know, He's already got that laid out for us. So yeah, what you did was meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, my faith is strong now.
That's why.
So you said you were in a leadership role. 15 military people is a lot.
Oh yeah. That not only that, but then some of the newer nurses that would come in, the lieutenants, commissioner, even though they were nurses, we still had to kind of teach them the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of the doctors, they were lost. Well, what do I do next? Well, doc, you got to do this, you got to do that. Because a lot of these guys, I mean, they were civilians. And all of a sudden now they're in the military as a captain, whatever. And yeah, we had to instruct them. This is the way we do it here, doc. Do it this way, do it that way. I say doc because we used to say them doc, even though they're captain or major or whatever. It was always.
Yeah, I mean,
And sometimes, even though it was taboo, you get to know these guys and they start calling you your first name. Can't do that.
You're not supposed to. When I was in, everybody in my battalion, anybody who knew me called me by my first name. They're like, hey, it's Timmy. It was never rank. It was never my last name.
Exactly.
Usually it was just higher up leadership that expected that. But people, even my first sergeant, he's like, hey, Timmy, come on, get in the Hummer, you know. So maybe I just had that personality.
Well, me, I got to be friends with our hospital administrator. He was the boss. He oversaw everything. He was a full bird
Okay.
colonel. And when I first met him, he was just a major. But we ended up in a bowling team together. From that point on, we were just, he'd come to the ward in front of all the officers and all the nurses. Hey, Roy, are you ready for tonight? We got to really do something. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know. And as soon as he walked out, I'm getting flack from everybody. Oh, first name basis now, huh? Just, it was a small base.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was still, you know, they didn't want you to fraternize, that type of thing. We did it.
You know, it's hard to have a cohesive team without like an actual personal relationship of some kind. So everybody that I've talked to that's been in leadership has that one guy that's like a knucklehead consistently.
Well,
I imagine a 15, one of your guys was kind of a knucklehead.
What was sad about where I was is that I always got the leftovers. I know it sounds bad, but
Yeah.
I always got the guys that the other people didn't like or didn't want.
Okay.
Okay. And there was a lot of diversity, if you know what I'm talking
Yeah, absolutely.
about. And I remember gathering the guys over and telling them, hey guys, you know what? We're no different than anybody else. You know, we still have this stripes. We still serve Uncle Sam. And so we're going to do the best we can. And the only way to do it is to show that we can do it. And that's why I was really insistent when I taught them what needed to be done as far as the next step for rank. That I used to hold classes at the house on base. When I'm there with my wife, I call her up, said, hey, bring the guys over for classes. And she'd make dinner and the whole thing. And we were there till midnight, cramming. I had a couple of guys that were hygiene was bad.
That's pretty common.
So they would throw those guys at me, and I said, do something with them. All right. And I would. I think I maybe took it too far for some guys, because the next thing I know it, they're coming up dressed up like to the kill. I mean, they really dressed themselves up. The way I did it is, remember that soap on a rope? I don't know if you ever remember that back in the 60s.
Well, I've heard the
soap
phrase.
On a rope. It was a soap and it was on a rope. And I would give that to each of the guys. I said, you get my gun? Yeah, Sarge. Okay. We got it. So let's do something about it. You're working in an environment that requires you to be at least aseptic, you know. So they got the hint. And you know what? I had a pretty good crew. Once I got them to the point where I think I had them to where I wanted them, take them away from me.
That's interesting.
Put them in somewhere else, and they bring some more guys. I didn't mind. I don't care.
They when I was in, we had 2 infantry companies and then 2 tanker companies, an engineer company, all in our battalion. It was like a combined arms detachment. And when I first got there and started meeting NCOs from around about, I was told that they would take all the turds from Bravo Company and send them to Alpha. And then when Alpha sent them back, they'd be NCOs and squared away. So it's that might point to your leadership style if they're sending you the turds
Yeah, well,
and
I
you're
knew-
sending them back functioning.
Exactly. And I knew that. I knew what they were doing. But I kind of felt bad for the guys to know that, oh man, I'm over here because, no, you're not. No, you're not. Here, everybody pulls their weight. Everybody does everything. I'll show you. I'll teach you what I know. And I had the books. I had everything they needed. All they had to do was just take their written exam in front of, a control area and then do an oral. And that determined whether or not they get promoted.
Oh, okay. So like a promotion board.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, we still had those in the Army, but I never made an NCO rank. I got up to E4 and then I got out. I did 3.5 years. Nothing special. Nothing,
Well,
nothing
I don't
special.
even, I was in the Air Force, I had 3 stripes, airman first class. They call it a buck sergeant,
Okay, that makes sense.
but I was really never a sergeant. I was just an airman first class. But they called me sergeant. It was either Sarge or Doc. Hey, Doc.
I would lose my mind at a military hospital full of medics. I'd be like, who do I call Doc? There's only supposed to be one of you.
Just yell out the name Doc and everybody will turn.
Yeah, I had one medic for our whole company, or our platoon anyway, and he rolled with us because he was really close with a couple of guys in our squad, so he was always with us, and they messed with us. Our medic messed with us. He would pick at us and joke around, and threaten us.
Oh yeah, I used to pull out the old. Back then, we didn't have computers. We had these little IBM cards, little punch cards. Every once in a while, I'd go there and see who's next on immunizations and stuff like that. So I would teach the guys how to give shots. So I take them down to the clinic. It's just, all these guys are getting ready for their shots. Here, I have Joe do it here. And that's how they learn.
So where did you? This might be a difficult question to answer. Where did you learn or pick up your leadership style from? Where did you get that from? Or did you just kind of have it going into it? Like,
All right. I don't want to brag. Okay.
every once in a while you get
Mark,
to do that.
Help me out here. I was the class president for 4 years. I was a member of the Honor Society. I was class president for student council here at Monroe High.
Okay.
You can check Monroe High, check the records. And,
So you had a familiarity with leadership and already had
Right.
developed a little bit of a style before.
I was in junior achievement for a couple of years.
Okay.
Then I joined Boy Scouts. I started out with Boy Scouts. Became a junior assistant scoutmaster.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I had that. I never asked for it. Somehow I always gravitated to it for some reason.
Just have that
So-
quality.
So I accepted it. Even at work, I was a general foreman or a foreman for the guys. But I don't know. I guess a lot of that has to do with the service too.
Mhm.
Because even though you may have the leadership, when you go into service, now you have a chance to kind of put it together more,
Mhm.
refine it.
Yes. You get to learn firsthand what does and doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, because while I never held a leadership position, there was plenty of times where I was in charge of some detail, had 2 or 3 new guy privates with me, and usually some grunt work type of thing. But now I am the unit commander for Monroe County Young Marines. Yeah, so it's similar to the Boy Scouts, but don't let the Young Marines hear me say that.
Yeah, I learned a lot in Boy Scouts too.
Mhm.
Learn go out in the woods, teach you how to start a fire out of whatever you can, just to earn a merit badge. You had to do all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So you learn. And during that time, I learned first aid. That was one of my merit badges. And like I said, when I was in school, my senior year, I was too old to play sports. So they said, I said, well, what am I going to do now with that? So I got into this gave me a job through the school at the Memorial Hospital. Back then, Memorial Hospital was a new hospital. I don't know if people know what I'm talking about. And so they told me, hey, we got your job over at the hospital. So I'm thinking, I'm going to be a janitor. I'm gonna be what? And they took me into the emergency room. And I met, I'll never forget her, Mrs. Bellmeyer. She was the nurse there. She says, go put on some scrubs. What are scrubs? Oh, yeah. It was, the shirt and the pants. And I'm thinking, okay, now I'm going to show you how to take temperatures. I'm going to show you how to take blood pressures. And I'm going to show you how to fill out these forms when people come in. You ask their name, all this, and their insurance, and who their doctor is, and what's wrong. I got to learn. They taught me a lot. And during that time, the hospital ended up with about half a dozen doctors from Cuba. Because at that time, Castro, was taking over, and some of these doctors fled. We had a bunch of them here in New York. Some of them stayed afterwards, like Dr. Costa, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. And since they were from Cuba, they knew Spanish, I was working there. The hospital trusted me that on Friday and Saturday nights, I was the only guy working in the emergency room. Now, if I needed a nurse, I just called, and the nurses would come down and give me a hand if I needed it. But I also had the doctors there all the time.
Huh.
So it was great. And they even showed me how to do this. They even showed me how to suture and do things like that.
I learned how to do IVs when I was in the Army. So I tend to get really frustrated sometimes when I'm at a hospital and I can't hit the vein because I know I could do it.
I in the hospital when I was in service, I learned how to start an IV on an infant right here. The little, they call it, it's just a small little, right here on the vein.
Right, just on the side.
I forget what they call it now. Just this little IV, just right in here.
Oh my God.
Going.
No way.
Oh, yeah. I used to do everything. I could tell you a lot, but one of the things that I really enjoyed as being there sometimes when they were delivering, the mom would want the baby to be baptized in case. And I remember the doctors telling me, most of the doctors would say, hey, you know how to do that? Yeah, everybody knows. Everyone should know how to baptize someone. So I go back there in front of the mom, and I would baptize the baby. And they were happy with that. Now, a lot of kids that get circumcised, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Those poor kids, I don't care what they say. Those babies were crying in pain.
Oh, they feel it. They definitely feel it. I can tell. I can tell when they did my son like that you can just tell. They're not happy and they're completely wiped out. And
Yeah, and then tell them, oh, they're
fine.
Right.
No, they're
Really?
just lying to mama. That's all
We
it
do
is.
that to you. But no, it was quite an experience.
So the first time I learned to do an IV, I was in basic, and I was with my partner, and he gave me my IV, and it went perfectly smooth, right? Well, when I did mine, I was like shaky and nervous. My drill sergeant's grouching at me, so I hooked him up, and I pulled the tourniquet, and he was just bleeding on the floor, and I'm just sitting there staring at it like, oh, what do I do? And drill sergeant's like, are you gonna stop the bleeding at least? So my first experience with an IV was a mess.
No, it was a butterfly. That's what it was, a butterfly.
Oh, like those little tiny needles, right? Okay.
But anyways, that was just one of the things that we did. I did. Other than that, yeah, there was, even after I got out of the service, Desert Storm was a big deal.
Mhm.
And here in Monroe, they had a big thing over at the fair. As a matter of fact, my son sang for the soldiers. Great to be an American.
Yeah.
That song.
Yeah.
By the way, my son is Miguel Tomas Lucio. He was an entertainer. He was signed with Warner Brothers, Warner Disco. And they had a big deal here, and I got to meet General Kelly, who was the guy in charge of every night he would give an update on what was going on in Desert Storm.
Okay.
And so he came here afterwards, had a speech, and we got to go fishing with him. But what they did is they took a veteran from each of the armed forces and go fishing. Well, the guys that showed up were in uniform. I didn't show up. So, but we had a blast.
Yeah.
Put him to a lot of questions, to the point where we had a reporter and a photographer on board. And I started asking questions, and right away he looked at me, and then he looked at the reporter. He says, I want you to write anything. So I was asking him some serious questions.
Well, yeah, I think that
Like, for
leadership.
example, you were so close to Baghdad that you could have just gone in there and gotten Hussein.
So that was definitely a question, then, right?
Why
Okay.
didn't you do it? And that's when he goes, all right, shut it down here. The reason we didn't do it is we were in. Wow. I would have done it,
We probably should have. It could have spared us some trouble, maybe.
but they weren't ready, I guess. That's what he told me. So you must know.
My thoughts are anytime you crush a dictator, some other jerk is going to just step right into a spot and do the same thing or worse.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But yeah, I don't regret any like I said, I love being in the service. But when that 4 years came up, there was always a retention interview.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yep.
And I'd always say, yeah, I'm gonna sign up. Yeah, I'm in, Sarge. Don't worry about it. I'll be in. So the last retention interview, I said, nope. Oh, I had a 90-day early out. And when I went in, he says, hey, Lucio, you don't want this, do you? You said you were gonna re-up. I said, no, I do want it. I went out.
He was pissed.
No, he wasn't.
No?
Nope.
My retention NCO hated me after, because at first I was also like, yeah, I'm going to stay. I'm going to bail on my boys early. And then when it came time to go, my ma had asked me to come home. So I did. And Sergeant O'Keefe was pretty cross with me, I think.
No, he didn't seem too upset. He said, oh, okay, not a problem. Then we'll go ahead and initiate the 90-day early out. They were closing the base. It was from what I understand, it was costing them too much money to keep the flight lines clean. Because in the wintertime, it's a constant.
No, it's a constant fight, I'm sure.
You got those B-52s sitting there all the time. At any time, they can be called. We used to go on what they call a recall.
Mm-hmm.
And they would take off. But it was just, and then we sit at as a medic, we drive our ambulances to the flight line in case there's an accident.
Mm-hmm.
So we were there. And nobody believes me when I say that being in the flight line in the middle of winter out there in the UP, 85 below zero with the chill factor.
Mm.
So if you're going to go out, you better be, because you got that, it's always windy out there for some reason, out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cold. It would get cold.
I work on a landfill, so I'm out in the weather all year round. So I have not 85 below, but cold.
Oh yeah,
It's pretty miserable. I can imagine that was a little upsetting.
but there was always something going on. Recalls. When I came home to get married, and on the way back, there was 3 tankers where they kept the fuel for the jets.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they call it, but and a couple of the guys went in there to check the level of these tanks. And you have to ground yourself. You go in there. Apparently, these guys didn't ground themselves, so it created a spark. And,
Oh, that was a mess.
luckily for them, they got blown out towards the flight line where they were piling the snow, and that's where they landed.
They made it?
Well, yeah, they made it. Oh, yeah, they were.
What?
One guy ended up with a broken arm, and the other guy got a little bit burnt. But the blast blew them out.
Yeah, no kidding. They were in and they just tossed them out into the snow?
Yeah. So when I came back, I'm going through the back gate of the base, and you're going through there, and you see what happened here. The guys told me that when that went off, they put the whole base on alert. They didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, because even all during Vietnam, we still had tensions with Russia going on, if I remember correctly. So yeah, something like that probably really freaked people out.
Yeah, they said they were passing out the small ammunition or weapons.
Right.
I said, really? Got that bad? Well, nobody knew what was going on. Thought they were being bombed. Remember, it's a strategic air command base.
That would be a prime target
Yeah.
if you were gonna do something like that. But yeah.
And then there was a little radar station called Rayco further into the Upper Peninsula. I can't tell you where. It was quite a ways, but it was a radar site, and we had to pull duty, every once in a while. Stay out there, man the clinic, and that was like I say, it was a radar site. So I don't know if it was part of NORAD or whatever. It was. It used to be back in the Second World War. They said they used that base because it's an airfield.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I pulled duty up there, I used to take the ambulance. We used to take the ambulance out there and run up and down the runways. Let's see what this baby can do. We had nothing but runway.
We used to do that with our Humvees and our Bradleys and stuff. See how fast we can get them going. We would jump things. When I was deployed, we jumped a car with our Bradley, ran it over. They don't get as much air as you would expect or hope for anyway.
We used to run into a lot of deer.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're like out in the middle of nowhere.
They used to have a problem with deer on the runway. You had to chase them off. You can't land.
No.
There's deer in the field.
Right.
They had that kind of problem when I was stationed at Wichita Falls with jackrabbits.
The runway would be covered with them.
They were covered with jackrabbits. And I used to see the Jeeps go out there with the guys chasing them off the runways.
Oh, okay. So I heard that when I was deployed, they would get out shotguns and shoot the birds that were out there.
That's another.
Yeah. And they did that.
Geese, a lot of geese.
Yeah.
They get into
those guys had fun doing that. I mean, I wish I got the chance to do something like that. Be all day long out there shooting just whatever flies off the airfield.
I guess. But what else we got?
That's Josh. All right. You got any funny stories?
I do.
You want to share a few?
Yep. We had a general, a one-star general, and it was on the weekend. And apparently he was having issues with his heart. So they dropped him off at the airport. They went and got him, brought him to the hospital. Sergeant comes up to me and he says, I need some volunteers to be with the general while he's here. We're going to do some testing, and we want to keep him occupied. So, yeah, I'll volunteer. Me and two other guys volunteered. So we 8 hours. We sit with him. We play chess, watch TV, talk, and we kept him company. And so it was like a Friday night, all day Saturday, and then on Sunday, he says to us, "So what do you guys do for fun out here?" Well, we got a golf course, we got a couple of bowling alleys, That's about it, really. He says, "Why don't you set up a golf alley? Let's go golfing. I want to repay you guys for, helping me out." So he took us to that morning. We went to the officers club, treated us breakfast. It was great. And then we There they had a 9-hole course, so you had to play it twice. So, you know, we went and got a Jeep. And I remember the sergeant says, "You can't drive that Jeep." I said, "Don't worry about it, Sergeant. We won't get on the green." All right, whatever. And because you're not supposed to have a Jeep on the golf course. Just,
Right.
but he wanted a Jeep. He's the general. So we got him a Jeep. So when we got to the 3rd hole, we see this guy and his son, and they got a couple of barrels or buckets of golf balls. And they're just, you know, hitting them. And we're waiting. So my other friend, his name was Tom McBride. The general says to him, "Go ask him if we can play through." All right. So he jumped off the Jeep, run over. And next thing you know, Tom's at attention. He's stiffened up. And the guy's yelling. He's going like this to him and yelling at him. Then he looked at us and he went like this. And you know, what's that all about? So Tom comes back. He says, "That's the base commander." Now, the base commander is only a full bird colonel. We're with a general, 1 star, brigadier. So we waited about 5 minutes. And then he turns over to Tom. He says, "Go ask him if we can play through." And Tom goes, "Sir, you know what he's going to do?" I said, "Yeah, I know. Go ask him." So reluctantly, he gets off the Jeep, runs over. He starts talking to him. And then that guy, the colonel, he's over there yelling and screaming. Now, they're in civilian clothes, so he's over there yelling and screaming at him. Then he looked at us and he did the same thing. "You guys, whatever." Tom comes back. 5 minutes later, the general says, "Okay, boys, now it's my turn." So he gets off the Jeep. He walks over, and he starts yelling at the general. So the general reached in his pocket and pulled out his ID. He went like this. And that guy stiffened up. He stiffened up, and he saluted him. And he told him, "Go pick up all the balls you got out here."
Oh, put him to work too.
So he went, him and his kid, they were all running all over the place, picking up all the balls. They got off to the side. We went ahead and, shot. And we went through, played 9 holes, got something to drink, played the other 9 holes. Then he took us out to dinner. And that was it. He took off. He was going, his next stop was going to be at, over here in Dayton. What is this?
What's that place called?
Can't think of the place there. Anyhow, he was going there. And so what happened, the next day I go into work and all the doctors and the nurses are like waiting for us. "Hey, what happened out there last night?" "Yesterday." "What do you know what happened?" "Yeah, what happened?" "Oh, we give it to the general." Well, it turns out that we ran into somebody that said, "Yeah, that was the base commander." I said, "Well, I didn't know." Well, we knew, but I didn't think anything was going to be made out of it. Well, all the doctors got themselves chewed out because the base commander should have known that there was a VIP on base. No one told him.
Well, he probably should have known, but it's still funny.
Well, no one really told him. I mean, it was a medical emergency,
Right.
And boy, he was mad. Too bad. That's the way it happens. But that was so funny to see him stiffen up right away and throw that salute up and then pick up all these balls.
Our sergeant major got after a lieutenant, which was pretty funny. I forget like the details. Like I don't know what it was. The lieutenant was pretty much just trying to tell this sergeant major that he was wrong. Sergeant major grabs his vest and he goes, "Sir, you're messed up, and if you don't fix yourself, I'm gonna mess you up." And he just kind of shoved him, and that was the end of it. Everybody was like red faced and sweaty because when sergeant major's mad, you don't want to be around.
We had our first sergeant, Sergeant Bowerman. I'll never forget him. Very distinguished looking man. He had stripes He was a chief master sergeant. That's the highest you can get, I believe, in enlistment. And I remember walking in because we were going to do something. I needed his approval. He's over there yelling at the colonel, yelling and screaming at him and all this. And I said, "Sarge, you're going to get in trouble, aren't you? Yelling at him like that?" He goes, "Yeah, it takes an act of Congress to bust me."
I mean, once you get high enough, it doesn't matter.
So, but I remember even the lieutenants and some of the captains calling him sir.
Well, I mean, by the time you get sergeant major rank, you've been in long enough, seen enough, done enough that you kind of earn that respect from everybody. You know, because a fresh lieutenant's been in for a year. It's like a private, you know.
Yeah, he carried a lot of clout. Like like I said, he was the kind of person with that uniform on and looked very distinguished. You know what I'm saying? Some people have that, some people don't. But he had it. But he was the nicest guy in the world to us.
Yeah, our sergeant major was cool. He was a cool guy. He just he rode a big, loud Harley, like 85% chrome.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, he did like our battalion did like weekly bike rides, motorcycle rides and stuff. So he was always harping on, being visible and wearing all the stuff. My leadership would not let me ride a motorcycle because I was a little wild. I probably would have died on it.
Nothing wrong with that.
Dying on a bike?
No. But at least, one way to go, I guess. Go on your Harley. I'd like to be buried in my Corvette. I don't have a Corvette.
Oh, I was gonna say my dad's like really excited right now. He loves vets.
Anyhow.
So what are you doing nowadays?
Nowadays, I'm retired. I retired from the plumbers and pipe fitters.
Okay. Happily retired or bored out of your mind retired?
Well, actually, bored out of my mind retired that I took another job. I went to Chrysler as a pipe fitter.
Oh, so you just shifted over, huh?
Well, it's a little different working at an auto plant than working out here.
Right. But they limit your hours because you're retired, right? Is that how that works?
No, I worked all the overtime I could.
Oh, okay.
They didn't think I could do it, but working 12 hours, it's like, I can do that in my head. We spent a lot of time here at the Firming and at Coburn.
Right.
But yeah, I worked, they retired me from Chrysler after I had 10 years in.
Really?
Yeah, they offered me a package, and I took it. They gave me a lot.
Okay. So you're like well off, doing good.
Now I just sit around the house.
Keeping yourself
Not sit
busy?
around the house. I mean, I do things.
Good.
Try to keep him in line.
Yeah, because he looks like he's so hard to manage.
He was. But other than that, yeah. Spend my life here in Monroe.
When I was growing up, I hated Monroe. I had to leave. And then before I even got out of the Army, I was like, God, I want to go home. I missed it. And now that I'm here, I'm happy to be here.
A lot of guys that I know of, same thing. I'm out. Then later on, come back.
Mm-hmm.
I had one guy that hated Monroe so much, he moved to Arizona. He said he moved because of his allergies. Well, he got them. He still had them. So came back. Other than that, yeah, I like Monroe. It's quiet.
For the most part.
Everybody's friendly.
For the most part.
I've never had a problem.
That's good. Maybe you just have the demeanor.
Well, I don't let it bother me. I mean, if people want to be that way, so be it. I don't care.
For the most part, I can do that. But I get my days sometimes where I'm like, dude, I'm going to throw this out my car at you.
Yeah. See a lot of that road rage and stuff like that. I just kind of...
When I was doing like PTSD coping skills and anger management stuff at the VA in Toledo. And they said for veterans, that's one of the most common times where veterans get in trouble legally is in road rage incidents.
Yeah.
Apparently that's the time when vets like to fly off the handle, apparently.
Well, I'm afraid that if I fly off the handle, either I'm going to go to the hospital or to jail.
Neither is fun. I spent most of my Saturday at the hospital. This last Saturday, I got bit by a dog, tore me up a little bit.
I hope you got a shot.
Yeah, the rabies shot.
Yeah, those are fun, aren't they?
No, surprisingly, they are not like they used to be. They don't go through your belly button anymore. They don't even have to stick it in the hole anymore. It's just a series of shots. I got 6. Yeah, I got 6 that day, and then there's like every 3 days after that.
Wow. So the dog wasn't a rabbit? Oh, who knows?
Just a dog, looked clean.
Yeah, you can tell when they're rabid.
Yeah, he or she didn't look too bad. Looked pretty clean. Not the first time I've been bit by a dog, though.
Yeah, I've been bitten. I hate it.
Yeah, it's not fun. Nothing about it's fun.
Oh, this dog just came up. Just walked up. What was that for?
I remember growing up, I would laugh at my dad all the time because every time he ran into a little dog, it'd pee on him. Pee right on his boot. Grr, damn dog. And like,
From all the other people.
I guess it just soaked into the boots, and every dog had to mark my dad after that. So what did you ever like maybe not because you're a medic. You worked in a hospital a lot. I had a lot of hurry up and wait. I spent a lot of time just chilling, waiting for nothing to happen. That was the same back then too.
Oh yeah, hurry up and wait.
God, that's terrible. They got to do something about
Get
that.
in line.
Get in line.
Hurry up and wait. Get in line. All right, get in line.
Stand by to stand by.
When I went through the initial, getting your immunizations and getting your checkup and all the deal, it was right here at Fort Wayne. They call it. It used to be some facility. And I remember walking like you're walking down this bunch of guys, medics, doctors, whatever, and they're shooting you with those air guns.
Okay.
Boom, boom. I mean, wow. And then the thing that they would say is, whatever you do, don't move. Well, what do you think? A lot of the guys would jerk, any little jerk, and you're ripped open.
Oh, really?
I don't think they use those guns. Man,
I did get a lot of shots, and then the penicillin in the butt cheek was terrible.
Really?
Terrible.
Why?
It felt like peanut butter, man. You couldn't sit straight for a while.
Because I used to give a lot of penicillin shots.
Yeah.
Because of
Every reason that a soldier would need to have a penicillin shot.
I used to administer it cold.
Oh, okay. Does that make it? Well, yeah, I can see where that would make it worse.
I didn't warm it up for him.
Of course.
You're gonna learn next time, buddy. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
So what'd you do the other night? All right, let's go.
That's awesome.
Now it was my turn. Man, I tell you what, I don't know the pain. Did you ever get shot?
Oh, all kinds of shots.
With the gun?
No. I was a little too quick for that.
If there's anybody watching, they know that pain is like, you won't forget it.
Yeah. My dad was shot in the foot, and he said it was miserable. He was miserable for months.
Other than that, that night, I remember the guys that were going to be shipped the next day to the Metro and then from there to Lackland. And I'll never forget that night when the sergeant, we're all getting ready to go to sleep. So you guys better get some sleep because as of tonight, it's ours. In other words,
Yeah, it's about to go down.
It's ours now. So
did you go up to, when I was going in, it was called MEPS. You'd go up there and they would like check your butt and make you a duck walk, like squat down and walk heel to toe. Did you guys have to do anything like that? Well, you got lucky, man, because that was like,
I mean, you got to remember back then there were processing guys left and right. I mean, there's a war going on.
yeah.
You know, they want everybody.
Oh, and they were probably waving things then that they wouldn't like go through now.
Well, okay. When I got out of the service, I applied for a job at Ford's, and they didn't take me because they found that when they did my back, they x-rayed my back, they found that my vertebrae were, one of them, the disc was off, so it was kind of fused.
Mm.
So that, for that reason, they didn't take me, and here I am jumping out of airplanes. I don't get it.
My uncle Jerry was in Vietnam. He was a truck driver. I believe he got drafted, but the guy in front of him was missing his trigger finger and he was right-handed. And they're like, well, you're just going to learn how to shoot lefty then.
But then again, I'll never forget this one guy at the hospital, stationed up there. They brought him in, and this guy was covered in a rash, like poison ivy. But it was worse than that. And they couldn't figure out what the problem was. So they did what they call back in those days, scratch test or whatever. They scratched to see what you're allergic to.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know what they found he was allergic to?
Hmm.
The Air Force uniform.
Oh, what'd they do? They just boot him, right?
With full bullets.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
What are the chances?
That's why he broke out. Something about the uniform.
Oh.
And so they discharged him with a medical discharge. Compensate. So, how'd you like to have that?
I liked the Army. I fell off the top of my Bradley. Our Bradleys, I don't know if you know what they are. It's like a tank, but it carries some infantry guys in the back. Well, I drove one for a while, so I did a lot of maintenance. I was standing on the back between the turret and the back ramp, and I was messing with the antennas. I think I was taking them off. I was holding them down by my side, and I was not remembering where I was, so I just walked backwards right off the top of the Bradley. I wasn't wearing my helmet, so I hit the ground. My head hit the ground, and then my butt hit the ramp, and just laid there. My buddies thought I was dead. They were sitting in the back talking and smoking, and they said they saw my head, and I was like, oh, hit the ground. I think I was out for a couple seconds. I had rocks embedded in my head and stuff. We got Doc, and he laughed at me, told me I was a dummy. It was true in that instance. He was definitely right.
A lot of things happened.
Oh yeah.
We had one incident. Remember I was telling you about the recalls?
Mm-hmm.
We used to sit there at the edge of the fields as the guys are making their landing. And this one guy bringing in his jet missed. There's cables to catch a plane.
Okay. Like
Okay.
they got the kind of like an aircraft carrier, right?
And he went beyond that. And so as he's coming, he was in trouble and he ejected. But he ejected too low. And we thought, oh man, this guy ain't gonna make it. Of course the plane crashed into the woods and stuff. So we drove out looking for him. And we thought we were gonna find him, Oh, here he comes walking. I said, sir, you all right? Yeah, we're okay. I'm okay. You gotta get in. We gotta take you to the flight surgeon's office. Because he still has to be checked out.
Mm-hmm.
So we drove him in. I don't know what happened, but all I know is they were yelling at him. They were screaming. I guess you just lucky you ejected so low. But again, there was a lot of snow and stuff like that on the runway, so that made it safer. Because we didn't know. We drove across to get him. Of course, we had him. And the firemen. See, it was the medics, the firemen, some of the other guys, like trucks, like graders, inloaders, and stuff like that. But as an ambulance, we were the first ones out there looking for this guy. But yeah, we found him. He was all right. But I think he got chewed out.
Yeah. Anytime we got hit by an IED, Doc would come and check us all out, just as like a precursor. We were all fine, usually just rattled. He would always come by, check us out, tell us to take ibuprofen or something.
Yeah. What is it? Take an aspirin. Send me the $5. Remember that?
Well, they told us take a knee and drink some water. That was a lot of the hey doc, I'm hurting.
There's Bill Cosby back in the day. And there's one where he was a medic. He was a Korean War. And he said he hated to wear that Red Cross on his helmet. He thought it'd be
It's a target.
a target.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I remember what he would say. The guys would come, medic, what do you want?
The military, the army military learns so much from medics being targeted because of that kind of stuff that our medic looked just like any other grunt walking around. Same weapons, same gear, looked exactly, nothing distinguished him except he just had a pack, maybe.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stories, sad stories, good stories.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I said, I'd do it again.
Almost everybody says that. Most everybody. I think my Uncle Jerry would say no.
Well, like I said, I used to learn how to wheel and deal too. Remember when I told you that I was in charge of a morgue?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to gross people out, but you have to keep those things clean. In a hospital, especially a military hospital, everything has to be spotless. When we had an inspection, the guy would put on a white glove, and that's what he used to see if there was any dust. I mean, he'd go everywhere, anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If that came out dirty, you got to do something about it. So, of course, we kept the morgue clean. We had 6 lockers. The last locker on the right, on the bottom was my locker.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept a lot of stuff in there that you would wheel and deal with. Now I would wheel and deal with formula because we used to have reps that represented different baby formulas.
Mm-hmm.
Similac, Infamil, Gerbers. There was all kinds. The BX sold them. So they would come to us and say, we're going to give you this formula to use on the infants, of course. So when the mothers were discharged with their babies, if they were on this particular formula that we were using for that particular cycle, we'd give them a little sample of it and tell them, you can pick this up at the commissary or at the BX, basic chain. And then we also would throw in a lot of other stuff that we brought in. A lot of Johnson & Johnson products.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a room full of this stuff. I had a room full of that stuff. Different, because being in an OB ward, you knew when so many babies are going to be born at a certain month,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they had prenatal care. They would see, oh, she's in the 3rd month. So you know that 6 months from then, they're going to deliver. So we would know how many kids, how many babies are newborns. Anyhow, so the reps would give me all kinds of formula. How many do you need? Well, let me look at the book. Well, for this month, I'm going to need this. And they'd also give me stuff to, like items, how can I say it? Aids, like for example, the eye, the big eye with the take everything apart.
Oh, okay, like visual aids.
A visual type of training. A model of a pregnant woman, you take certain months off. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they used to give me stuff like that, and I would use it to train. The doctors would ask, I'd give them to the doctors when they train with the nurses. But the one thing that I really got from them one time was an IBM electric typewriter. That was a big deal back then. That sucker was big. And I had it. I gave it to us. And, everybody wanted the typewriter. When I left, I gave it to one of the nurses. But in the process of wheeling and dealing, there was this one doctor who was the vet. He was the veterinarian.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just for animals. You know, they're the ones that inspect all the mess halls. You know, they inspect the meats. Anything that comes in, they have to inspect the meats, make sure it's okay for the commissary, make sure it's okay for the cafeterias on base, the hospital, and stuff like that. And they had a child, and the baby had to have iron in his formula. So the pediatrician asked me, he said, "Hey, boy, do you have any formula with iron?" I said, "Yeah, man, I got a stack of that somewhere." He says, "Well, this particular, you know, yeah, I know all about it." So when they were being discharged, I told the doc, I said, "Hey, doc, the veterinarian, I got a lot of this formula for you. He says, you know, if I can get it to you, you think you have a place for it?" I said, "Yeah, man, I'll take it. I'll take anything you got." So we took an ambulance, loaded it up, took it over to his office, dropped everything off. He was really appreciative. "Thanks, you know." About a week later, I get a phone call from him. He says, "Hey, I got a side of beef over here that I just rejected. Now, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I just rejected it. So, can you use a side of beef?" I said, "Yeah." You know where you can store it? "Yeah, I know exactly where I can store it."
You stored it in the morgue. Perfect place for it.
So, sent an ambulance, took the gurney out, put that slab of meat on the gurney, brought it back to the hospital, rolled it down the back, rolled it in, and I asked a couple of the sergeants at the kitchen, I says, "You guys know how to butcher?" "We know how to butcher. Of course we know how to butcher." I says, "How about a side of beef? Can you butcher a side of beef?" "Lucy, we can do anything. What do you want?" "I got a side of beef." "Where did you get that side of beef?" "Don't worry about it. But can you butcher it up? Steaks and stuff." "Yeah, bring it in." I had steaks. I had everything.
That's awesome.
Like
All
I said,
stored in a morgue.
Oh no, because you deal. I mean, I wasn't really dealing and wheeling, but they were nice enough. He was nice enough to repay
Yeah.
with a side of beef.
Hey, that's awesome. Beef's expensive nowadays.
We used to go fishing. That's where we kept our fish. Sometimes we get a box of lobsters. Or,
Hey, you're only gonna find something like that in a military setting where you're using a morgue to store raw meat.
nothing wrong with that. We never used it.
Right.
The
No.
whole time that I was there, we never used it.
Wow.
I was there for 3.5 years, so I kept it clean.
Yeah.
I mean, everything got inspected until when we can't get this locker open. What's wrong with it? "Oh, you know what, Sarge? I don't know what's wrong with the key. I can't seem to get it." I had the key. "What's in it?" "Well, probably nothing. Never opened it." Because they're refrigerated.
Right. So, any last minute things? I've gotten a thumbs up a couple times.
What do you want to know?
Well, you can just last minute advice for the veteran community.
I would say that it's good to be part of the military. I suggest for anyone that doesn't know what to do with themselves right now, join the military. You know, and they'll teach you. I'll tell you, you walk out of there with a little bit more up here.
Mm-hmm.
At least they'll get you organized. That type of thing. But yeah, I would encourage that. You know, there's some people out there that can't afford college. I couldn't afford college.
Me neither.
So at that time, I was drafted. And so I had no choice. But, things worked out. And I look back, people that are going into the military now, they've got it made. more than me or you. Yeah, they're still rough. It's rough. But I'll never forget that word that I told you that my recruiting sergeant told me. They'll yell at you, they'll scream at you, they'll do anything in the world, but don't take it personally. And with that in mind, I made it through basic. Yeah, I told you some of the things that these guys would do, the drill sergeants. But once they got to know who you were and what you were made out of, you were their example.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they never let up on me. I told them, hey, why, Sarge? How come you? There's two sergeants. Why you guys pick on me like this? Because there was a time when they would sit down, they take their hats off. So, why are you doing it? How's it going? You liking it so far? Are you writing to your mom and dad? Are you keeping in touch with your family? Yeah, I'm okay. You got any beef? Yeah, I do. How come you guys all over me? And they told me, of all the guys here, we want you to be the one to make it. You know, as an example. I said, wow, well, thanks a lot. Could you lay off from me?
Gee, thanks. I'm so glad you crap on me every chance you get.
And they did. Every once in a while. But
Well,
yeah, it was a great experience. I loved it. I'd do it again if I could. And I would encourage anyone to look into the military as an option. It's not going to hurt. And besides, there's a lot of benefits afterwards. I got through my apprenticeship with plumbers and pipe fitters using my GI Bill. That worked out great. I bought my house on a GI Bill. So there's benefits. Got the VA.
Yeah, free healthcare is good.
So yeah, I would encourage anyone to look into the military.
All right. Well, you heard it from the man himself. That's all we got today. Thank you. Kevlar
My pleasure.
Kid out.